So is it common for me to go into, areas, especially as you're working in global health and is, you know, from a leadership perspective, maybe more male dominant, to some settings that may be more archical, going into some settings where you're the only person of color, going into some settings where you're really clearly the youngest person sitting around this table. But again, I've I don't know. Growing up with my family in the South, I was that person. I grew up in church, and you know, when you were young, you had to get up and do a speech. Your Easter speech or your welcome speech, or you had to. I sang in a choir. I cannot sing. I did all of that. So when I was 10 years old, I was driving. So I grew up with a lot of confidence, I would say, in myself, and I grew up with a lot of self love. And I think that is so important in these spaces. So I know who I am. I prepare for the meetings and the spaces that I have to show up to. And I come as Jimica. And so, will everyone accept you? Will you deal with the norms around people having their very biases? Yeah, you will. But my encouragement is to continue to show up as yourself. Be prepared. Be the best professional that you can be within your own right. I'm not saying kill yourself or go over and beyond in doing things unnecessarily, but show up and be who you are. Be confident in who you are, and my faith has helped me even in the darkest spaces of my journey. So
Well, I appreciate the reality and the transparency there. You also, as you alluded to, have your Master's of Business Administration from Emory University. What was that thought process of going in to get the MBA?
I've been a planner more in the more latter part of my life, and so I really do think about what I desire to do next. So once I got really comfortable with understanding public health and global health from my MPH and my experience, what I've learned from my projects, especially working on the technical side, is it's not always about science. So that business call and my prior experience in consulting and working with financials, and and thinking about how communities can thrive. So that piece of me, that business side of me, and that leadership perspective on who you are as a leader, how you work within organizations, how you move organizations based on what value that organization is driving. All of those things became really important to me. And I also I'm a person that loves I love school in some ways. And I have so many strong communities from being in school. So I wanted that. I wanted that business acumen, that understanding, and then I also wanted to build a different type of community because I love different schools of thoughts as well. So I always have this this thing. It's like one of my shoes is a Converse. Like some old Converses that represent public health, and my other shoes, these like black heels that represent corporate or business. And I enjoy being on both sides of that. So I was just ready to do something different, something that I was still passionate about, and that's business.
And reflecting on that and the work that you do, how has that MBA helped and supported you as a professional?
It just helps. It has helped broaden my thinking again around what public health really means and how we can go about building strong communities. And so again, it is the science is so important, the programs and education that we do, but the finances are just important. How are we building and establishing businesses, and how we're preparing communities thrive within their community, what their skill sets look like, what does entrepreneurship look like for people, particularly for people of color or for minorities? What does that look like? What does that impact mean? What does micro lending mean for a community? What does you know getting any type of funding and being able to manage that funding? What does loans of any type, or just building a business? What does building a business actually entail, and how to operate it? So I think those things are, like I said, just as important to me when I think about public health or the health of a community and their ability to thrive.